Imagine this. You're standing in a crowded room. Laughter drips from every corner like melting wax. Conversations flicker and burn with energy, and you are invisible. You smile, mechanically, nod when you're supposed to, say, "I'm fine," when your chest is a cathedral, echoing with silence. Eyes graze past you like you're just another piece of background architecture. You check your phone, no new messages, not a single notification. It's been 3 hours, it's been 3 days. No one is angry with you, no one has left you, because no one was really there to begin with. And you ask yourself, how can something that feels so empty hurt so much? You begin to wonder if love is something you only get if you earn it. If you look a certain way, speak a certain way, if you are loud enough, useful enough, funny enough, beautiful enough. Or maybe it's worse than that. Maybe you were born missing something, an invisible mark that makes people look through you instead of into you. What if the world never loves you back? Not out of cruelty, but out of indifference. The paradox is this. You can live in a world where people praise self-love in Instagram captions and therapy slogans, where the phrase, "just love yourself," is as common as coffee shops, and still feel like there's a glass wall between you and that possibility. You press your hands to it, mouth the words, "I'm trying," but the silence echoes louder than your own breath. Here's the truth no one talks about. Loving yourself when others don't feels unnatural, like trying to start a fire in a vacuum. We are wired biologically, socially, philosophically for feedback. We construct the idea of who we are based on mirrors, and those mirrors are other people. Their glances, their praise, their warmth, or their abandonment. But what happens when every mirror is cracked? When the only reflections you see are distorted or empty? You begin to believe you are what others fail to see. Do you feel that hollow space inside your chest? That's not loneliness, it's invalidation, the quiet but corrosive absence of recognition. It doesn't scream, it dissolves. Over time, you begin to wonder, why do I feel invisible when I'm right here? Why do I crave love so desperately, yet feel undeserving of it? Why do I keep checking my phone, hoping someone, anyone, remembers I exist? You tell yourself you shouldn't care. That self-love is the antidote, but here's the dissonance. How do you generate love from a place that's never felt it? Is it possible to love yourself into existence? Or is self-love just another myth we sell to the lonely, an opiate dressed in pastel affirmations and hollow mantras? This isn't just an emotional crisis, it's a philosophical dilemma. If identity is built through relationship, then who are you in the absence of reflection? Who are you when no one holds your story, when no one remembers your laugh, your fears, the shape of your handwriting? Does love still exist if it is never returned? And the deeper question, one that scrapes at the bone, are you lovable if no one loves you? Imagine a world where you are the only person left. No witnesses, no admirers, no friends, nothing to perform for, nothing to prove. Could you still feel your worth? Or does it vanish the moment it is no longer seen? There's a secret grief in being unloved, not from heartbreak, but from non-existence, a slow erosion of soul. It's not that others hate you, it's that they don't see you, and somewhere deep in your mind a voice begins to whisper, maybe that means there's nothing to see. But what if that voice is wrong? What if love isn't given, it's remembered? What if you were never meant to find yourself in their eyes? What if the absence of love from others is not the final verdict, but the beginning of a rebellion? This is where the thread begins to unravel. or perhaps, finally, to weave itself into something stronger. You've been living in the shadows of mirrors, chasing a kind of worth that always depends on someone else's gaze. But what if your existence isn't a question they get to answer? What if the pain of being unloved isn't proof of your unworthiness, but a crucible that reveals your power? You don't have the answer yet, but you're close. Something ancient and immovable is starting to stir beneath the surface, because the real question isn't how to love yourself when no one else does. It's this: what if the only person who ever needed to love you was you? And what if you've been waiting for someone who never needed to arrive? Let's go deeper. Let's tear down the walls and look at what's been hiding behind your silence. You wake up one morning and stare at the ceiling. Nothing's changed. No one called, no one knocked, and yet there's a weight pressing against your ribcage, like the room itself is aware of your isolation. You drag yourself to the mirror, hoping for some reflection of certainty. But instead, there's that look again, the one you've practiced for years, neutral, composed, unreadable. What if the real problem isn't that no one loves you? What if the real problem is that your sense of self has been hijacked by the expectation that they should? Let's peel back the surface. From the moment you're born, your value is not discovered, it's assigned. Cry and someone picks you up. Smile and someone coos. Be quiet and they call you good. You don't learn who you are, you learn what pleases. And through that praise, your identity begins to form, not like a sculpture from within, but like clay molded by others' hands. This is where it starts, the deep fusion between identity and external approval. Carl Jung called this the development of the persona, the mask we wear to adapt, to survive in social spaces. But the danger, he warned, is this: the persona is what one is not, but what oneself and others think one is. In other words, the version of yourself that you present to the world isn't who you are. It's who you think the world will accept. And when that performance is met with silence, you begin to question whether you ever existed beneath the mask at all. Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "Hell is other people." Misunderstood as a critique of others, what he meant is more haunting. We are imprisoned by how others perceive us. We long to be seen, but the moment we are, we become an object in someone else's story. And if no one chooses to include you in theirs, you begin to vanish from your own. This is the hidden architecture of the pain. You aren't just lonely, you're alienated from yourself. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer took it further. He believed that desire, especially the desire for recognition, is a trap, a fire that never quenches. Even love, he wrote, is driven by a blind will, not rational choice. We chase validation not because it completes us, but because the very act of needing it proves its absence. Here lies the cruel paradox. The more you need love to feel whole, the more you confirm to yourself that you are not. So when no one loves you, no text, no hand on the shoulder, no voice saying, "I see you," the void you feel isn't just emotional, it's ontological, a rupture in your very being. But why does it feel so existential? Why does the absence of others' affection reach so far down into the roots of your identity? Because at your core, you've been trained to outsource your worth. Social media, self-help culture, even pop spirituality reinforces this outsourcing. They tell you to love yourself, but also sell you products, lifestyles, and aesthetics to get there. Even the phrase self-love has become an irony, a pursuit riddled with comparison, performativity, and the silent hope that once you appear healed, someone will finally love the real you. But what if that's still a mask? Aldous Huxley once wrote that the greatest triumph of the modern world is the development of mass man, a person who no longer knows where the crowd ends and the self begins. The self becomes diluted, not just by social conformity, but by the illusion that worth is measured by visibility, desirability, or influence. You may not realize it, but this idea that others must confirm your value is so deeply embedded into you that even your pain has learned to depend on it. You don't just feel unloved, you feel invalidated. And to be invalidated is to feel like your emotions, your experiences, and your very existence are not real unless someone else affirms them. This is the invisible cage, the belief that love must be mirrored to be real. But what if that belief is the real lie? Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and renowned psychiatrist, found meaning in the most unimaginable absence, where there was no comfort, no recognition, no safety, and certainly no love. He discovered a profound truth, that suffering itself does not destroy us. What destroys us is the belief that suffering is meaningless. The absence of love, then, is not necessarily a sign of unworthiness. It might be a test of perception. It might be the pressure needed to forge meaning, not through reflection, but in defiance of it. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But let's stretch it further. He who finds a why to love himself no longer requires the how to be provided by others. So what now? You've been taught to chase love as if it's a destination at the end of the performance. You've been conditioned to see yourself through the lens of reception. But here's the philosophical fracture. If love is only real when it is returned, then it is not love, it is commerce. And if self-love is only allowed after social validation, then it is not self-love, it is approval wearing a mask. So what does it mean to love yourself in the absence of witnesses? To look at your own scars, failures, and forgotten dreams, not with pity, but with reverence, to say, "I see you," even when no one else does. This is the hidden battlefield. You're not fighting the absence of love. You're fighting the belief that absence equals nothingness. That belief is the real enemy. And it's time to question everything it told you, because what's coming next is a reckoning. But what if that's still a mask? Aldous Huxley once wrote that the greatest triumph of the modern world is the development of mass man, a person who no longer knows where the crowd ends and the self begins. The self becomes diluted, not just by social conformity, but by the illusion that worth is measured by visibility, desirability, or influence. You may not realize it, but this idea that others must confirm your value is so deeply embedded into you that even your pain has learned to depend on it. You don't just feel unloved, you feel invalidated. And to be invalidated is to feel like your emotions, your experiences, and your very existence are not real unless someone else affirms them. This is the invisible cage, the belief that love must be mirrored to be real. But what if that belief is the real lie? Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and renowned psychiatrist, found meaning in the most unimaginable absence, where there was no comfort, no recognition, no safety, and certainly no love. He discovered a profound truth, that suffering itself does not destroy us. What destroys us is the belief that suffering is meaningless. The absence of love, then, is not necessarily a sign of unworthiness. It might be a test of perception. It might be the pressure needed to forge meaning, not through reflection, but in defiance of it. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But let's stretch it further. He who finds a why to love himself no longer requires the how to be provided by others. So what now? You've been taught to chase love as if it's a destination at the end of the performance. You've been conditioned to see yourself through the lens of reception. But here's the philosophical fracture. If love is only real when it is returned, then it is not love, it is commerce. And if self-love is only allowed after social validation, then it is not self-love, it is approval wearing a mask. So what does it mean to love yourself in the absence of witnesses? To look at your own scars, failures, and forgotten dreams, not with pity, but with reverence, to say, "I see you, even when no one else does." This is the hidden battlefield. You're not fighting the absence of love. You're fighting the belief that absence equals nothingness. That belief is the real enemy. And it's time to question everything it told you, because what's coming next is a reckoning. You think the pain is in the silence, but it's not. The silence is only the doorway. What lies beyond it, quiet, invisible, and devastating, is the reshaping of the self beneath the weight of that silence, a distortion so subtle, so internal, that you don't even notice it happening. One day you look in the mirror and realize you don't recognize who's staring back, not because you've changed, but because you've been edited, not by growth, but by absence. When love doesn't arrive, when validation is withheld, your brain doesn't say, "They failed to see me." It says, "Something in me must not be worth seeing." And that's the most dangerous assumption of all. You don't just suffer unloved. You begin to curate yourself to survive it. You become more agreeable, more pleasing, quieter, or louder, funnier, tougher. Whatever shape might finally win someone's gaze. You sand your edges, shrink your needs, twist your personality into something more palatable. But here's the hidden cost. Every time you betray yourself for connection, you deepen the belief that your true self is unlovable. Psychologist Carl Jung spoke of this with chilling clarity. He observed that when love is conditional, when we only feel accepted if we behave a certain way, we split into two selves, the organismic self, who we really are, and the ideal self, who we think we must be to be loved. And between them, a gap grows. Not just a gap, but a chasm. That chasm becomes anxiety, self-loathing, depression. We no longer mourn the absence of others. We mourn the absence of ourselves. This is the unseen consequence. The wound isn't that no one loves you. The wound is that in response, you've stopped loving yourself. Think of how many choices you've made from that place. How many times have you said yes when you meant no? Laughed at jokes that cut you, swallowed feelings that made your throat burn because you were afraid your truth would be too much? You didn't just want love, you began shrinking for it until you barely took up space at all. Neurologically, this pattern roots itself deep in the brain. The limbic system, especially the amygdala, interprets social rejection as a survival threat, not metaphorically, literally. The same brain regions that respond to physical pain light up when you're excluded, ignored, ghosted. That's why it hurts so much, because the brain doesn't distinguish between being punched in the face and being emotionally erased. But the body doesn't just respond with pain, it adapts. You become hypervigilant. You scan for cues. Did they reply fast enough? Did their tone change? Are they pulling away? You interpret neutrality as rejection. silence as condemnation. You build defense mechanisms, self-deprecation, people-pleasing, emotional numbness. All of it unconsciously designed to protect you from a truth you've never been brave enough to confront. That somewhere along the way, you decided their absence meant you were not enough. And here's the cultural reinforcement. Society rewards this distortion. We live in a world that profits off your insecurity. Social media algorithms feed on your need for validation. Advertisements whisper, "You'll be lovable when you buy this, wear this, fix this." Even self-help sometimes becomes performative. Another mask, another way to say, "Look, I'm healing. Please love me now." You begin to commodify your own journey, hoping that if you appear strong enough, healed enough, wise enough, someone will finally say the words you've been starving for. "I see you. I choose you." But those words never land, not in the way you need, because they aren't the cure. They're another echo in a hollow room. Because here's the hardest truth. Even when someone does love you, deeply, fully, you might not believe them. Why? Because your brain is still wired to reject love that contradicts your internal story. If you've built your identity around the belief that you are unworthy, any love you receive feels like a fluke, a lie, a mistake. You sabotage it, push it away, or worse, cling to it so desperately that it suffocates. This is the final cruel irony. Unloved people often don't know how to receive love, not because they're broken, but because the map they were given is wrong. It tells them to seek love like treasure buried in someone else's heart, when the key was never external to begin with. And yet, here you are, haunted by the absence, bent by the pressure, and still, somehow, breathing, still here, which means something ancient inside you has not surrendered. Maybe the self you buried, beneath the persona, beneath the shame, beneath the years of seeking, has not died. Maybe it's just waiting, watching, quietly hoping you'll turn inward, not with judgment, but with reclamation, to say, "I see you," even if no one else ever does. "I choose you," even if the world turns its back. And to mean it, not as a mantra, not as a coping mechanism, but as a revolution. Because the most dangerous consequence of being unloved is forgetting that you were never required to earn love in the first place. You don't have to deserve to exist. You already do. Your value was not written in the glances of others. It was carved into you the moment you arrived. You don't need their eyes to become visible. You don't need their approval to be whole. You only need the courage to stand before your own broken mirror and say, "I am still here," and that is enough. But what would that take? What does it mean to rebel? Not against others, but against the lie that you are only real if you are loved. It's time to tear that lie apart. Not gently, not politely, but like someone who's been starving for the truth their whole life. Let's burn the old script, the one that says love must be earned, that worth must be proved, that your existence is a performance, and the applause of others is your only cue to continue. Because what if everything you've ever believed about self-worth was a well-mannered lie? What if you didn't need to become lovable? You needed to become dangerously real. You've been waiting for love like it's a rescue ship. But the rebellion begins the moment you realize you are not stranded. You are the ocean itself. This is where the real war starts. Not against others, but against the indoctrinated belief that love is something given to you, rather than something born from you. So how do you break free? Not through cliches, not through affirmation wallpaper pasted over emotional rot. You break free by unlearning, by doing the very thing you've been told is impossible. Love yourself without evidence. 1. Radical self-acceptance is not a reward. It's a rebellion. Most people wait until they feel worthy to begin loving themselves. But worthiness is a moving target. The rebellion is this: love yourself before the proof, especially before the proof. Like a soldier honors a flag that hasn't yet flown in victory. Like a mother sings to a child not yet born. You love yourself the way prophets speak into the dark, because the truth must be spoken before it is seen. This is not about arrogance. This is sacred defiance. The world told you to wait for someone to see your light. But rebellion is becoming the sun whether or not they're watching. 2. Withdraw the witness. Here's the most dangerous move you can make in a world obsessed with image. Stop performing. Stop narrating your pain like a curated post. Stop trying to heal beautifully. Stop pretending to grow in ways that make others comfortable. Your healing doesn't need to be photogenic. Your becoming doesn't need applause. You do not exist to be understood. You exist to be true. Remember Sartre's warning. When you look through someone else's eyes to define yourself, you become an object. So withdraw the witness. Stand in front of your own life and say, I will be real even if no one is watching. That's freedom. That's power. That's yours. 3. Kill the ghosts in the mirror. Who are you still trying to impress? A parent who never said they were proud of you. A lover who chose someone else. A friend who disappeared. A society that feeds on your silence. These are ghosts. Figments still living rent-free in your self-image. And as long as you shape yourself for them, you remain their prisoner. Cut the cord. Write the letter you'll never send. Speak the truth you never dared say. Burn the idea that you must become someone else to be loved. Rebellion means burying who you were supposed to be, so the truth of who you are can finally breathe. 4. Remember those who defied the mirror. You are not the first to feel invisible. History is full of rebels who learn to love themselves into legend. Think of Frida Kahlo, her pain painted onto canvases that no one could ignore. She didn't beautify her suffering, she gave it a voice. Or James Baldwin, who loved his blackness, his queerness, his fire, even when America told him he was unworthy of every part of it. Or Nietzsche, who looked into the void and wrote back. These weren't perfect people, they were unapologetic ones. And their power came not from being loved by the world, but by declaring war on the lie that said they couldn't love themselves first. So ask yourself, what would it look like to love your contradictions? To wear your pain like a coat of arms instead of a shackle? To stop fixing yourself long enough to finally recognize yourself? You don't need to wait until you've healed to start loving who you are. That's the trap. That's the stall tactic. You begin now, even if your voice shakes, even if your reflection is unfamiliar, even if your past claws at your heels, especially then. 5. Build the unbreakable ritual. All revolutions need rituals. Here's one that doesn't require belief, only practice. Every morning before you engage with the world, before texts, notifications, mirrors, or makeup, ask one question. If I were already loved deeply and fully, how would I move today? Then move that way, not because it's true yet, but because it becomes true through the doing. Let your posture answer. Let your voice answer. Let your choices whisper, I belong here. I do not ask permission to exist, even if no one claps. Even if the room stays empty, you stand anyway. That's the rebellion. Rebellion isn't loud, it isn't glamorous. It often looks like silence, like choosing not to text, like saying no, like standing still when the world tells you to dance for love. But every time you choose authenticity over approval, you punch a hole in the lie, and through that hole, light comes in. Because here's the final irony. When you love yourself without evidence, you stop needing the evidence. And when you stop needing it, that's when the world often begins to offer it. But by then, it doesn't own you anymore. You've become your own witness, your own mirror, your own revolution. Now only one question remains. What lies on the other side of this rebellion when all the masks are gone? When you stop needing to be loved in order to feel love? When the crowd fades and it's just you, in the quiet with nothing left to prove? What's left? What truth remains? Let's find out. Imagine this. You are standing in a white room. There are no windows, no mirrors, no voices, just you. No titles, no memories, no projections. Nothing that can be applauded, nothing that can be abandoned. Now answer one question. Are you still real? Not as an idea, not as a resume, not as the echo of who others remember you to be, just real. This is where everything you've been taught collapses, because the final truth is not something you earn or construct. It is something you uncover once everything else falls away. You were never broken. You were only buried, under need, under performance, under the 1,000 subtle lies whispered into you by a world that benefits when you forget your own name. This is the tragedy of the unloved. They forget that they were never supposed to be found outside themselves. They keep searching endlessly for the reflection of a truth that was always internal. But here, in this quiet, in this white room of the soul, you remember, you are not someone who needs to be loved to exist. You are love, having an experience as a person. Let that land, not poetically, not philosophically. Let it hit your bones, because the final realization isn't just a shift in mindset, it's a return, a sacred homecoming to the place you never actually left. You are not waiting for love. You are love remembering itself. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust, wrote something you must not forget. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. But what if the deepest change isn't becoming something new, but unbecoming everything that wasn't truly you? What if the whole arc of healing isn't a climb toward worthiness, but a descent into the radical truth that you never lost it? Let's go further. Let's ask the question most people are too afraid to speak aloud. Why does being unloved hurt so much in the first place? Because at some primal level, it suggests the unbearable. If no one loves me, do I even exist? But now you know the answer. You do. Even unloved, even unseen, even when the world forgets your name. Because existence was never a democracy. It was never a vote. You do not need a majority to justify your being. You are not here to be validated. You are here to be. The final truth feels like death at first, because something inside you must die. The illusion, the script, the ache for someone else to hand you permission. You grieve it. The fantasy of being saved. The imaginary lover or parent or friend who would finally make it all okay. But after grief, silence comes. And in that silence, a pulse, not loud, but steady. Yours, your breath, your being, your sovereignty. This is what wholeness feels like. Not loud joy, not triumph, but the quiet knowing, I am mine, not because you succeeded, not because you became lovable, but because you stopped pretending you weren't already whole. Now what? You walk differently, not faster, not stronger, but lighter, because you no longer carry the unbearable weight of needing to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. And from this place, love from others isn't oxygen anymore. It's a breeze, a gift, not a requirement. You'll still feel pain, you'll still long, you'll still ache, but it won't define you, because now you know something unshakable. You are not who they failed to love. You are who survived it, who saw the abyss and did not jump, who built a home in the silence, who kissed their own scars like altars. You are what remains after everything false burns away, and what remains is holy. So when they ask you, how did you learn to love yourself? You won't say affirmations, or self-care, or journaling. You'll say, I remembered. I remembered who I was before they told me who to be. I remembered that I am not an object waiting to be picked. I remembered that even when the world turned its back, my soul was still facing me. You'll say, I didn't fall in love with myself. I fell into the truth, and the truth was love. And if ever again you find yourself in the dark, wondering if you matter, if you are worthy, if you are seen, remember the room, the white room, the silence, and remember the truth you now carry. You were never unloved, only mistaken. Love was never something to receive. It was something you are. So walk now, not with the hope of being loved, but with the knowing that love walks with you, because it is you. The revolution is over. You are free. Now live like it.